good to be back on the stage, and I hope that you all have some energy left from 2 fantastic days of lots of content. And content is what we're smoothly gonna be talking about as well, because I would like to talk to you about what we have done to bring your content out more in Google Search and make it shine. Cool. All right. So I think one of the things that I have learned over the last 1.5 years-ish of talking with you all and also bringing my perspective as a web developer to the Google Search team is that sometimes we underestimate the power of Google Search and what it does to our website. Because fundamentally, why do we build websites? Not just for, sure, okay, we also build websites because we are kind of like excited about the stuff that we can build, like the new capabilities and all that stuff that we brought to the web platform. They're exciting. But fundamentally, we build our websites for users, and all our work towards performance and user experience and safety and privacy and all that are basically mirroring that as well. But fundamentally, we want users to find our content because the web apps that we create, the content that we put on the web, we think is very, very valuable. Hopefully, you think that your content is valuable. If not, we should have a chat, I believe. But OK, let's assume that you think that your content is really good and you have done the necessary steps to make it good. How much does Google Search give you? How much does it help you? Well, it turns out by a recent study that was done that approximately 53% of the content that websites are the traffic that websites are seeing are actually coming through organic search. What is organic search? That's your day-to-day search engine of choice, whatever it is. And that can be Google Search, for instance. So what we are doing is we are trying to bring free traffic to you, to bring your content to the users, to make sure that your content can actually shine and prosper on the web and that you, your company, your business can actually be successful as well. So that's like one way to look at search. And I think for us developers, it's an important venue to understand where are the users coming from, who we hope to be on the site, and how can we make sure that they are seeing the content that they need to see, because it's our content after all. And today I'd like to look back at what we have done this year to make Google Search better for you. So we are making things better without you having to do the work. Isn't that amazing? It's like free good stuff. It's like free cookie. I don't know. It's not as good as a cookie, though. I still think, though, like cookies, the entire thing with like baking cookies is a weird one anyways. Like I think like you have good cookie dough and then you put it in the oven and it comes out less good, but anyway. Might just be me. So one of the biggest things that has happened in this year is actually probably our announcement at Google I/O that Googlebot is now evergreen. Right? That's like a quantum leap. We have been using a crawler or like a rendering engine that was a little behind, and we have jumped forward to making that evergreen to keep up with Google Chrome and actually give you all the features that Google brings to the web platform, also in rendering, so that we can index the content that relies on these new technologies and possibilities and capabilities of the web platform. But what does that really mean? Well, first things first, this is like a huge leap and has been basically worked on by many teams, many people. A lot of the work is now also visible in other venues, like Puppeteer, for instance, is a side effect from what we have done in Google Search as well. And it brings over 1,000 new features. ES6, we have proper web component version 1 support. We have service, well, no, we don't have. We have a bunch of new stuff that we didn't have before. You can now rely on that to not be an SEO problem, to not get in the way of your content actually being accessible to Google Search and actually being visible in Google Search. We have also made sure that we are not just doing like this one update one time, but within a relatively short time frame of every new stable release that comes to Chrome, we're actually updating our Googlebot rendering engine as well, so that what you see in your Chrome is also what you see in Google Search. And not just that, we also made sure that the testing tools we have out there, the rich results test, the AMP test, the mobile-friendly test, this URL inspection tool within Search Console, all these tools, they are also up to date with whatever version of Chrome we are using when Googlebot renders your pages. So you can actually verify that things are working in Google Search. And the nice thing is that with this new change, we are all like still catching up to what this means when Microsoft announced that Edge is now using Chromium as well as the rendering engine. We were really, really excited to see that Bing has also went forward and went like, okay, yes, we are also running with an evergreen Bing bot, and we want to render JavaScript using state-of-the-art rendering as well. So this means that now, across the industry and search engines, we're seeing signals of actually getting up to speed with the modern web in search engine indexing, and that's really, really exciting to me. Also, basically, Google Search got a lot more powerful because we are using the browser that you are probably using as well when we are rendering your pages and making sure that we work and continue to work on making sure that what we see when we index your content to show it to users on search later, that we are seeing what you're seeing as well, right? But there's one thing where we still have some work to do. This is the user agent that you see in your server logs if we are accessing your content with Googlebot. And the keen eye might spot that something's off here, right? And I get asked this question like, but you said it's an evergreen Googlebot, but then I look at my server logs and I see this. What's happening here? The simple answer to that is that we are trying to maximize, or working to maximize the compatibility between Google Search and websites, and we can't just make changes like this. We have to test things very carefully, and we make sure that we are supporting everyone's content in Google Search. So we had to basically be very, very careful moving forward with the user agent. But we have announced multiple times now that this is about to change. We are about to update the Google rendering, the user agent in Google rendering. So please, 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 if you are having some sort of code that is doing UA sniffing for Googlebot, do not match to the exact string that you saw earlier. Match basically very roughly about Googlebot. If you want to know if it's a real Googlebot or not, that is perfectly possible. We have documentation on that. You can do a reverse DNS lookup from the IP that we tell you we're coming from. If that resolves towards Google IP addresses, then you know it's an actual Googlebot, because the user agent string does not really give you that benefit. So please make sure that if you have workarounds for Googlebot and others, that you are not too strictly matching the user agent in the future going forward. Because this change is hopefully happening in December. That's what we are aiming for. If you want to learn more, you can go to webmasters.googleblogs.com and learn more about this change as well. Cool. Another thing that I oftentimes get asked, and it's a very, very fair question, is what about JavaScript being so much slower in indexing and rendering in Google Search than non-JavaScript websites? Is that still a problem? Well, last year, Tom and I were on this stage and telling you, well, you know, it can take up to a week. We are very sorry for this. Forget this, OK? Because the new numbers look a lot better. So we actually went over the numbers and found that it turns out that at median, the time we spent between crawling and actually having the rendered results is, on median, it's 5 seconds. Right? A few keen eyes here might be like, but what's like the 90th percentile? And to which I can say, don't worry about that. That's within minutes. So you don't have to worry about week-long delays or something or anything like that. However, be prepared that you might still hear that. And the reason for that is the way that the entire pipeline really works. So the pipeline that Googlebot runs through is actually quite a complicated one. This is a gross oversimplification. It's much, much more complex than that. A bunch of stuff might happen at the same time. A few steps might run multiple times. It is more complicated than this. However, most of it is transparent to you because it's a implementation detail that you shouldn't be worried about and you don't have to be worried about. But effectively, that means that the only moments when you actually see if something's happening are actually when we crawl. So when we make an HTTP request to your service, we leave a mark in your server logs, right? You see, aha, Googlebot is fetching this request. But you don't really see when we are processing, because there's not much actionable things that happen in processing. It's just like us dealing with the response and like with the robots TXT and all that kind of stuff happens in crawling and in processing. You don't really see that. Rendering itself, you don't really see that, because we are just like working through the resources, executing your JavaScript, producing content, bringing that back to processing. There's not much you can see. What you can see, though, is at the very end of this entire process, you see when the content shows up in search results, right? So there's a whole lot of stuff happening in between these 2 points that you can actually measure and see. There's like canonicalization, which means like removing duplicates. There's like error handling. What happens if there's a network timeout? What happens if your server was down for a moment? These kind of things we handle for you. You don't have to worry about them. But that means that if we are only coming around crawling every now and then like certain things happen on our side that you don't have to worry about, it might take a while until you actually see things in the index. But that doesn't mean that JavaScript held them back. Generally speaking, as we saw, we are really, really fast in rendering. So that's not really an issue that you need to be worried about anymore. OK, so now I have basically like addressed the two biggest questions that I kept getting since I/O when we announced the evergreen Googlebot. The user update is going to change, and rendering delays are not really a big problem that you have to deal with. You can be pretty relaxed about using JavaScript in your pages for SEO reasons. But now let's take a step back and see like, what is actually the complexity of this entire thing? Why did it take so long, and what's involved in making a renderer? Or how do I make a rendering engine? How hard can this be? Just give me 10 minutes, and I'll have like a renderer, right? So what if we take like Puppeteer, for instance, which is effectively a programmatically controlled Chromium instance, which is what our rendering is as well, right? And we just build our own rendering engine. OK, cool. Or, well, renderer for search purposes. So I think like the easiest thing when we use Puppeteer is to just get started. You just open a new page in your Puppeteer instance, and you set the viewport. Except what do you set your viewport to? Mobile dimensions. OK, but what are mobile dimensions? And what if the content is like very long and this is already a little weird. OK, let's just assume we somehow figured that one out. We set our viewport dimensions, easy going, whatever. Next step is we just have to fetch the actual page, right? So we make a network request. We get all the HTML in that loads all the images and all the JavaScript. So we have to load these resources as well. And we wait until the page is done. But what does done mean? Do we wait until the DOM content loaded? Do we wait for page load? Do we wait for when the CPU doesn't do anything anymore? But what if the CPU keeps like cycling through JavaScript because there's like some sort of periodic thing that happens? What if it takes too long? What if there's an infinite loop in your website? Does that mean that this instance is now completely like, blocked forever? Do we wait 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 50? This is what Rendertron does. Rendertron just goes like, until we do not have anything on the network anymore or a certain threshold is over, like then we're just going to kill this. But this is the simplification. We are having a lot of work to do to make sure that we actually wait until your website is ready and do not fall in the trap of waiting too long either, right? So that's a problem. And last but not least, OK, now we have actually like gotten this website to render. What do we do next? Well, we need to like figure out what is the content here. So can we just like pull the HTML from the entire document like this? But what about shadow DOM? That's a tricky one. So how do I deal with shadow DOM being there? Because I might not get shadow DOM through this because the shadow DOM border is going to hide that shadow DOM content. This is tricky. You see, like the point here is that it isn't as straightforward as you think to actually build a renderer. Our teams have worked years to make this as perfect as possible, and we are continuously working on improving, and we're continuously testing and monitoring what happens in search to make sure that your website is rendered properly. There are things you can do to help us out here. Make your websites fast, make your websites reliable, make sure that they're not taking too much CPU resources, they are not like killing the network, and because these are effects that users will also feel, right? So we are working to make these complexities go away, but you should not worry about these complexities. This is the nice thing about it. It's an API that is relatively easy and straightforward to deal with. You just make good websites for the user. The rest is my problem. It's nice, isn't it? It's like, it's not my problem. It's Martin. How can I ever sleep again? I don't know. We'll see. And I mean, this has been quite a journey. I mean, this sounds quite not large and big, but the evergreen Googlebot turned search results indexing from websites that showed up when Googlebot was accessing them like this into like getting the proper content. So we are finally ready to use whatever you are throwing at us as long as it is reasonable for the users and the web in total. And I think this is a very important moment. So these are complexities that we are taking away from you, and you can focus on building better things for the user, and I think that's the key here. And we are pretty happy that this is not just like us being like, well done. No, it's actually being seen in the industry, especially also from SEO. So Bartosz from Onely, which is a technical SEO agency, published like a case study and an article of the JavaScript SEO state in 2019. And he compared that to 2018 and said, like, this is an amazing improvement, and we have been doing so much better in these terms. And I think I like this specific quote where he said, like, if you look at the National Geographic, they're a very good example. 100% of their JavaScript content is indexed quickly. So that makes us very, very happy, and this should be your signal to bring this information back to your SEO experts and SEO advisors and tell them, like, look, JavaScript is an important part of the web, and modern web applications can be successful in Google search. That is absolutely possible. Right, now I would like to quickly walk through a few things and a few patterns that I'd like to quickly discuss, because I think they're great patterns to use, and they are also very, very helpful for indexing in Google search. Or rendering in Google search. One is lazy loading. I think we're all very happy that we finally have the native lazy loading APIs for images and iframes. These work in Googlebot. As Googlebot is evergreen, we are supporting these attributes, and they are not hurting you. So if you are not using them yet, you should definitely consider using them. It's such a low-hanging fruit to do. If you need more complex lazy loading, or lazy loading on elements or content that does not fall into the two categories where native lazy loading exists, I highly recommend checking out the intersection observer, because who would have thought this is also now supported in Googlebot, and we are testing this quite frequently as well. So this allows you to have like a more custom lazy loading if you need to. As I said, web components are supported, but as I also said when I said, like, let's build a naive renderer using Puppeteer, Shadow DOM is an interesting thing, right? So like, I got questions about, like, is it supported? Does it work? Can we actually index content inside Shadow DOMs? And the answer is yes. Yes, we do. Like, this is absolutely perfectly fine. We have a Shadow DOM content in this case, like, is this indexed? Yes, it is. What about this? And then we use some mechanism to get whatever is in the light DOM. In this case, can you render me? We pull this into the Shadow DOM, and that gets flattened into the tree, and then we can index both of this. So all of the content here will be successfully indexed in Google search. So that means we have finally full, proper version 1 web component support in Google search. I cried a little when we had like that moment. I'm like, oh, finally, such a beautiful moment. Another thing that I'd like to just bring up, because that's something that doesn't just like magically we fix it because we think it's not broken, is if you have images. Images are a fantastic way of engaging with your audience and making sure that you surface your content. If you have your original image content, you should put that in image search, because it's a fantastic venue for people to discover your articles around these images as well. If you want us to index your images, totally cool, like, we got you. The HTML image element is there, and it's perfectly fine. This is what we do. We search for image elements in your content, and then we index them unless you prevent us from doing so by setting no index or something. That's not great. We're not going to index that. Don't. OK? Sweet. Speaking of images, we are also basically working towards making image search more useful for users. We have a bunch of different venues of doing so. So we are having better query understanding, as well as we are trying to be more useful for like figuring out the context of the image in the article. So we are featuring images differently. And soon you will be able to use Search Console to also tell us if you want to use structured data to give us high-resolution images. These high-resolution, shouldn't have like sung that many songs yesterday. Anyway, stage. Right. So if you want your high-resolution images to not hurt performance, you can tell us in structured data in the future that you have a higher resolution version, and we can surface this in other places like Google Homes or Google Assistant, which brings more traffic to these images if you're lucky. So we highly recommend checking out the articles that are coming up on the Googlebot in the near future, and also using Search Console to see if there's like new stuff coming. Speaking of structured data, we have more structured data to make sure that your content really can shine. We have how-to markups, we have QA pages, and all that kind of lovely stuff. If you want to check that out, I highly recommend using that link to find what kind of verticals we support. We support all sorts of verticals. We support events, like this, for instance. The website has structured data so that we can highlight that in Assistant as well as in the search results, like here. We have recipes, we have articles, we have books, we have movies, I think, and TV series and all that kind of stuff. And this gallery is a fantastic place to check out what's happening there. And definitely it gets you, like this is very, very much an eye catcher, right? You get more screen estate in Google search, which means your content is more likely to catch the eye of the user. Recipes are one example. Sweet. Last but not least, I said we have made sure that our tools are always up to date with the actual rendering engine. So when you are using mobile-friendly tests, rich results tests, all of these tests, you are actually rendering through the real Googlebot rendering process. And this updates as Googlebot updates now. So we are no longer having like a discrepancy between what we do in the testing tools and what we do in the actual Googlebot. So we also made sure that we gave you a better flow of working with things in Google Search Console. The new Google Search Console allows you to monitor how your entire site is doing. It's in terms of like, how is it performing in search, but also are there pages that are having problems? Is there structured data that is broken? And also like all sorts of other things. You can easily debug these things within Google Search Console and use like other tools on top of it as well to make sure that you are on top of what's happening on your page. And you can use the validate fix flow where you can signal to us as Google Search, I think we fixed this, and then we'll like double check if that is true. If it is fixed, we'll let you know and also re-index the page. You can validate if everything that you have been doing is right. And then last but not least, the performance report also helps you figure out where you can do better, where can you grow your search traffic. So besides debugging any sort of issues that you might have on your site, we have a few new really cool things. So this is the URL inspection tool that has been there for a while. But it's worthwhile like checking it out. Tells you how Google Search was accessing your page the last time. What was the result? Can we index this content or not? Why can we not index it if we can't index it? What can I do about it? And there's also the validate fix flow in the screen. But also, we basically give you JavaScript debugging capabilities in Search Console too. So you get the stack trace, you get the error messages that we are seeing when we are rendering your website. So you no longer have to just like guess. You can actually run this and see what we are stumbling over if we are stumbling over some JavaScript problems. A very nice one is the speed report that launched last week. So we are now having this report that gives you an idea of, based on Crux, based on the Chrome user experience report, from real user data, where are pages that we might want to optimize. So it takes them into 3 buckets. It tells you these pages, this is a sample of pages that are fast. These are pages that are okay, moderately good. And then these pages are slow, and you can work with these pages and basically integrate with other tools like Lighthouse or PageSpeed Insights to figure out where you need to spend a little bit of time to make them faster. Imagine you have a website with like 1 million pages. Do you want to like run Lighthouse on all of them? Like, okay, cool, I'll be gone for a week. I'm lighthousing again. Lighthouse is a fantastic tool once you know where these problems are. The speed report is your way, your lens into that. You see where can I spend some time to make my website significantly faster? What are the low-hanging fruit? Where should I be drilling in and digging in to make sure my website is fast and great for users? So we highly recommend you check out this report as it gives you a nice, wonderful site-wide overview of what's happening. Cool. As you can see, it lets you drill into the different kinds of issues, and you can also then like see specifically what the pages need. I see people taking pictures, that's good. We also have a fantastic new document. Well, new, it's like not that new, but it's new to many people here probably. It's the Troubleshooter guide. If you have JavaScript problems, we have a guide that tries to identify the individual problems and then guides you through potential solutions to them. This guide is relatively new, and we have worked with the community to make sure that we are covering the most frequent problems, but we would love to hear your feedback on this. If you see problems that were not tackled in the report then or in the document, then please let us know. We are happily extending the document with your feedback as well. Sweet. Last but not least, I'd like you to like take a few things away and also to bring this back to the SEO experts that you're working with. If you are an SEO expert in the group, in the crowd here, woo! then please also bring this back to your developers who might not be watching this stream. I think one of the things that shocked me the most over the last 1.5 years was that oftentimes SEOs and developers are not working hand in hand together, because I think we are very powerful allies if we work together, and they can help you not deal with all the monitoring effort and making sure that your content strategy is right. They're really good at that. But you as developers, you can help them understand better what do these performance metrics mean? What does the slow performance mean on a specific page? What does the soft 404 really do? And basically help them prioritize the things. And if we work together, we'll be able to bring better content to all our users much, much more efficiently, and we will be able to unlock these additional users that might come over organic traffic if we tick all the boxes. So we can be working together. We should be allies. We should not be working against each other, okay? So last but not least, I'd like to sum it up by saying Google Search is here and will be here to help you and your users to find each other. We want to bring relevant content to the users that you care about, that you might not even have met yet. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and bye-bye.